Picture a man with a pair of scissors working through a stack of folded clothing. He cuts out the tag inside his jacket collar, the brand label stitched into the waistband of his trousers, even the tiny care label sewn into his underwear, all clipped away one thread at a time. This man isn't cutting these labels off of his clothing because they annoyingly scratch his skin. He's removing these labels as a last attempt to erase his identity and anything that may lead to someone knowing who he is and where he came from. 3 days later, he's found dead on an Irish beach. No wallet, no ID. The only name we have for this man is Peter Bergmann. It's what he wrote on the hotel register he stayed in, but the paper trail proves it was entirely made up. So let's dive in.
You may be wondering, like we were, whether it is actually possible to completely erase your identity, especially in a day and age where it's hard not to leave a digital trail. And we're not talking about the move to a new city and change your number or delete your Instagram kind of erasing. We're talking systematically wiping out every trace that you ever existed. Your photos, your bank accounts, medical records, legal documents, even your name. Most people who go missing were either running from something or someone made them disappear. This case is different. In June 2009, a man got off a bus in a small coastal town in Northwest Ireland called Sligo, carrying a suitcase, a false name, and, as it seems, quite a detailed plan. Over 16 years later, he's still unidentified. Irish police ran his fingerprints, his photograph, and his DNA against every database available to them, both domestically and internationally. Nothing came back. This isn't a case everyone's forgotten about either. As recently as 2023, a cold case organization called Locate International relaunched a public appeal for information on him, refocusing attention on CCTV footage in the hope someone, somewhere would recognize him. Nobody has, not yet. So let's walk through exactly what he did in the order he did it, because the deeper we dig, the stranger this case gets.
On Friday, June 12, 2009, sometime between 2:30 and 4 in the afternoon, a man is spotted at the Ulster Bus Depot, also known as the Foyle Street Bus Station in Derry, Northern Ireland. He's carrying a black shoulder bag, often described as a laptop-style bag, and a standard carry-on suitcase. He boards a bus heading south across the border into the Republic of Ireland. The bus rolls into Sligo station at exactly 6:28 that evening. He steps off and immediately hails a taxi to take him into the town centre. It is a choice that has puzzled researchers for years because the walk to his destination is flat, straight, and takes barely 10 minutes. To some, this short taxi ride was the first clue that he was a complete stranger to Sligo, someone who didn't realize how close the hotel actually was. But looking back with what we know now, that taxi ride plants a much darker seed. It's peak tourist season, and the first hotel he tries is fully booked. He has better luck at the Sligo City Hotel on Quay Street, where he pays for 3 nights upfront in cash. Now, at no point does anyone ask him for identification. Staff at the front desk would later describe a slim man about 5'10", somewhere in his late 50s to early 60s, with short grey hair, blue eyes, and a tan complexion. He's clean shaven, his hair is combed, and he's dressed like a professional. Black leather jacket, blue trousers, a black leather belt, black shoes. He speaks English with a thick, unmistakable German accent. On the guest form, he writes a name, Peter Bergmann. For a home address, he writes a street in Vienna, Austria, along with a postal code. To the reception staff, it's a check-in like any other, a well-dressed European man on a solo trip. But when investigators later tried to run his address down, it fell apart in their hands. Austrian postal codes all begin with the number 1. His began with a 4, and the specific code doesn't correspond to any assigned postal code in the country at all. The street name, as reported, doesn't appear to exist anywhere. Everyone who's looked into it agrees that the address was fabricated, and so, in all likelihood, was his name.
Once settled in, Peter's behavior shifts from unusual to genuinely unnerving. And this is where the CCTV footage becomes the whole case. Sligo, like most Irish towns its size, has cameras covering its town centre. Now, over the next few days, investigators pieced together nearly everything Peter did outside that hotel. And watching it back, it doesn't look like a man on holiday. It looks like someone working through a checklist. On Saturday, June 13th, at 10:49 in the morning, cameras catch him walking into the Sligo post office. He buys 8 stamps, 82 cents each, along with airmail stickers. Airmail, meaning whatever he was sending, it was going somewhere outside Ireland. And to this day, no letters connected to this case have ever surfaced publicly, and nobody knows who received them, if anyone did. The rest of his Saturday is quiet. He runs errands, comes back to the hotel to eat, and steps outside now and again for a cigarette, keeping to himself but staying polite with anyone who crosses his path. And over the next few days, cameras catch him leaving the hotel again and again, each time carrying a purple plastic shopping bag, and it was clearly weighed down with something. He walks out, turns down a side street, and a while later the camera picks him back up again, walking back into the hotel, but the bag is now empty. Sometimes it's folded under his arm or gone completely. Investigators' working theory is straightforward. He was gradually getting rid of his belongings, a little at a time, in public bins around town. Now, what's strange is how he did it. He never once dropped anything into a bin that a camera could see. He'd walk out of his way, sometimes a considerable distance, specifically to find a bin tucked into an alley or a spot outside any camera's field of view. Now, whatever was in those bags is gone. A passport, documents, photographs, we simply don't know, because it was collected with the rest of Sligo's rubbish before anyone realized it mattered. Then, on Sunday, June 14th, something different happens. In the early afternoon, Peter leaves the hotel and walks to the town's only taxi rank. He asks the driver, not the hotel staff, the taxi driver, if he can recommend somewhere quiet to swim. The driver takes him to Ross's Point, a peninsula about 15 minutes away by car, known for its dramatic coastal views. Peter gets out, looks at the water for a moment, and seems satisfied. Then, instead of getting out and spending the afternoon there like you'd expect, he gets straight back into the same taxi and rides back into Sligo. It's a strange little detour on its own, but in hindsight, it reads like a scouting trip. He was going back to Ross's Point the very next day, and this time he wasn't coming back.
Monday, June 15th, just after 1 p.m., Peter checks out of the Sligo City Hotel and hands back his key. He's carrying what appears to be a different, new, black luggage case. The original carry-on suitcase he checked in with 3 days earlier is simply gone from the footage, never explained. He doesn't head straight for the bus. He takes a circuitous route down Quay Street and Wine Street, a stop at the Quayside shopping centre, where he stands in a doorway for several minutes, poised, as one account puts it, like a man about to turn back. He doesn't turn back. He continues on towards the bus station. At the bus station, he reads scraps of paper he's pulled from his pocket, tears them up, and drops them in a nearby bin. More information deliberately destroyed in plain view of anyone sitting nearby. He orders a cappuccino and a toasted ham and cheese sandwich while he waits. At 2:20 p.m., he boards the bus to Ross's Point. It's later established that as many as 16 people saw him on the beach that afternoon. He wasn't hiding. Witnesses remembered a jovial, if formally dressed, older man greeting the strangers who crossed his path. The last confirmed sighting of him alive is at 11:50 that night. After that, nothing. No camera, no witness, no more sightings at all.
Tuesday, June 16th, not long after 6 a.m., a local man and his son are out on the beach at Ross's Point, moving through the last remnants of a sea fog. In the distance, something is resting on the sand. It's a body. It's Peter Bergmann. The published record on exactly what investigators found is genuinely inconsistent. Wikipedia's summary, sourced to Irish Times reporting, describes him as found wearing purple striped swim trunks with his underpants pulled on over his trunks and a navy t-shirt tucked in. An oddly layered outfit nobody's ever explained. Vice's 2019 investigation, based on original reporting and an interview with the case's lead detective, describes him instead as found naked with his clothes scattered across the shore nearby. Both can't be fully right, and we haven't been able to find a single source that reconciles the two. But what every source agrees on is this: there was no wallet, no cash, and no form of identification anywhere near the body. And every label on every piece of clothing connected to him had been removed with scissors. His teeth tell their own story. Good condition overall, with a few fillings, some crowns, and, according to some accounts, a full gold tooth. Someone had spent real money keeping this man's mouth in good condition over the course of his life. Then comes the post-mortem, and this is where the sources diverge again, though less dramatically. Vice reports it was quickly established that he had drowned with no hint of foul play. The Wikipedia summary, by contrast, describes the pathologist finding no evidence of classical saltwater drowning, alongside a history of ischemic heart disease. Vice separately reports he'd suffered previous heart attacks and was missing a kidney. Both versions agree on the most important finding: advanced prostate cancer and bone tumors throughout his body, discovered only after death. Now, given the cancer alone, this man would have been in significant ongoing pain in the days before his death, and yet toxicology reports came back completely clean. No medication of any kind, no alcohol, nothing. Whatever pain he was in during those 3 days of walking Sligo, mapping camera blind spots and cutting labels out of his own clothes, he appears to have endured it with a completely clear head. And that on purpose.
In 2019, 10 years into this case, journalist Francisco Garcia traveled to Sligo and sat down with Detective Inspector Ray Molderig, by then the third detective to hold responsibility for the file, after the original investigator John O'Reilly had since moved on. Molderig pushed back gently on the idea that the case was some kind of thrilling obsession for the department. "We don't get fascinated in cases," he told Garcia. "They arrive to us and we deal with them." But he didn't dismiss how deliberate the whole thing looked. "There seems to have been a purpose to it," he said. "Everything he did seemed to have had a purpose, from cutting the labels off his clothes and all the rest of it. The question you have to ask is, why Sligo? If you want a scenic place to die, you're spoiled for choice across the west coast of Ireland, or even Scotland for that matter. Something must have brought him here, even if we've never been able to say what that was." He described the case's current status with a phrase that stuck with a lot of people who've covered this story since. "I liken it to a computer that has gone into sleep mode. When something new comes up or someone credible comes forward, then we will move the mouse and it will spring back into action." Now, it's worth saying that this isn't a department that has given up, and it isn't a case that's inherently unsolvable. Molderig pointed to a 2008 missing person case from the same region, unresolved for 8 years, that was eventually closed with the help from Welsh police using fingerprint technology. What makes Bergmann's case different isn't a lack of effort. It's that there is no missing person report anywhere in the world attached to him. We don't have a missing persons report and never have, Muldering said. No one has ever come forward to say this could be my father, brother, or cousin.
Even with everything investigators pieced together, there are more questions than answers, and it spawned a strange little afterlife of its own. In 2015, the French newspaper Le Monde looked into the case and contacted Austrian police directly. Austrian police said Irish Gardaí had never actually reached out to them. Le Monde also reported something stranger still. There's no Interpol notice for this man at all, because his case technically doesn't fit either of Interpol's categories, either missing person or wanted person. Under Interpol's own rules, it's the responsibility of a person's country of origin to report someone missing in the first place. And since nobody in Austria, Germany, or anywhere else has ever come forward to report him missing, there was nothing to formally notify. Now, that single bureaucratic gap may be a big part of why this case never got the international traction similar ones have. Then there are the physical odds and ends that still don't add up in some retellings. A small bar of soap in his pocket, reportedly not matching any brand sold in Ireland, and CCTV descriptions in a few accounts mentioning glasses and a blue cardigan that were never recovered. The case has also picked up a real cultural footprint. In 2013, Irish filmmaker Kieran Cassidy released a short documentary, The Last Days of Peter Bergmann, which for years was some of the only media coverage the case had. It found an online following, and with that following came a theory almost too strange to leave it out, that the entire case was a hoax invented by Cassidy himself as some kind of art piece about our obsession with true crime. When Garcia asked Cassidy about it directly, the filmmaker replied within minutes, "It's real. Welcome to the rabbit hole." A Sligo area playwright named Teresa Nealon wrote a play about the case too, called A Dream of Dying, which tells his last days in reverse. She told Garcia she was careful not to claim she knew what he'd actually been thinking. "It's too intrusive to say that I wrote from his perspective. You can't put thoughts in this man's head," she said. "But creating the backstory for him painted a picture for me at least. I hope he had a nice childhood and a good life, though we can't ever be sure. I want him to be identified." Of course, people want to know the answer, but he didn't want to be identified. Maybe he thought no one would care. I don't know. As for who he actually was, the theories online have multiplied over a decade. Some think he had an intelligence or security background, the argument being that no ordinary tourist maps a strange town's camera blind spots within 48 hours of arriving. Others think he was connected to organized crime and on the run from something. Still others believe this was about money, that he was trying to trigger a life insurance payout for his family he was leaving behind, so that couldn't be traced back to suicide. As of 2019, Garcia counted 9 separate Reddit threads dedicated to picking the case apart. None of these theories have any confirmed evidence behind them. They're theories built on the sophistication of his behavior, but nothing more. The theory that lines up most closely with what the autopsy actually found is simpler. A man with a terminal diagnosis, deeply private, who didn't want to be identified, mourned, or traced back to whatever family he had. The scouting trip to Ross's Point the day before, the choice of a quiet beach specifically recommended for swimming, it's consistent with someone who intended to walk into the Atlantic and let the tide carry him away permanently, and whose body or health gave out before that could happen.
After a 5-month investigation with no family ever coming forward and no match in any database, Irish authorities buried him in an unmarked grave in Sligo. The case didn't stay buried with him. It resurfaced with Cassidy's 2013 documentary. It resurfaced again through Neelan's play, through an Irish Times podcast a decade later, and again in 2023 when the cold case charity Locate International relaunched a public appeal on the case's 14th anniversary, building an interactive page with new CCTV footage and asking anyone with information to come forward. As of right now, Peter Bergmann is still the only name anyone has for him.
What are your theories about this case? Let us know what you think down in the comments below. If you want more cases like this one, hit subscribe and we'll see you again in the next video.